Taking in account our qualification, how can we honor the Vaishnavas in a befitting manner according to the Upadeshamrita?
Well, is that the natural position of as a devotee is to feel themselves unqualified. Even the highest devotees express those things. I just mentioned Kolavecha Sridhar. He's saying, I have no qualifications to glorify you. Nimai Pandit command Saraswati to appear on his tongue. Okay. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami speak, they're unqualified. All the superior devotees, the substantial devotees, speak of themselves as being unqualified and in want. They never reference their adhikar. That mentioned Upadeshamrita means Rupa Goswami and elsewhere. This type of analysis is given independently. Rupa Goswami is the expert. So a devotee, Guru Maharaj says also, anartha nivritti. We go sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, nishta, ruchi, ashakti, bhav, etc. So Srila Guru Maharaj said, a Vaishnava will never think that they have achieved anartha nivritti, that they are free of unwanted things, undesirable things, impurities, or misconception. So that's for our, we think of ourselves in that way. What Guru Maharaj says, Rupa Goswami is referring to how we will view others. And taking it, this is all predicated upon having substantial connections, being initiated by substantial Vaishnavas. So, saying, because Guru Maharaj is quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur's interpretation of it, saying, if someone is like in a Sahajya line, these things do not apply to them, other than back to the Trinadapi, the general respect. But he's saying within the community of devotees with recognized spiritual connections, saying how to interact with them. So he's saying mentally, if someone has the least connection, like we see sometimes a new person is coming, they're very favorable to Krishna, we're respecting them mentally on the basis that they're now expressing some appreciation for the holy name of Krishna, the acharjas, the devotees, Krishna conception in general. We start revering them. At least we're acknowledging something there. If they become initiated, then we show some formal respect. We're bowing to our God brothers and God sisters, because they have a substantial connection with our Guru. So he's saying they're not just some mental, and again, this is predicated upon, circumstances permitting. Right? We're talking here in theory, so circumstances permitting. Then we show some, not just mental, but formal, like bowing down, giving dandavats to one another. We do that. Right? Not just to sannyasi as a guru, to God brothers and God sisters, they bow down to one another in recognition of their connection with the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Krishna, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, etc. And then the highest position, we offer ourselves to them in service. That is the appropriate response to coming in the relativity of a Mahabhagavata, is to offer ourselves in service. Just as we found in the case of Srila Prabhupada, after his disappearance, when myself and others, we came in connection with Srila Guru Maharaj. we could understand that the appropriate response, acknowledging or expressing appreciation, was to offer ourselves to Him in service, not to use Him for our purpose. Right? We can get so much from Him that will be useful for, not like that, but to offer ourselves to Him. I remember when I went to Him at a very critical time, and there was one meeting, and it was all my head was whirling, and then one answer to one question answered everything. In one sense, there was no need to actually continue further. One answer to one, everything was adjusted. As everything becomes adjusted at the lotus feet of Sri Guru. But anyway, I continued and asking so many more. Some were mine, some were the questions of others. And so at the end of that meeting, I was totally satisfied. And then that evening, preparing to rest, and I thought, the mind will think that everything was too perfect. The mind will attack you and make you think in another way. I mean, the next day came, and again, all these perfect answers to these questions. And at the end of which, Guru Maharaj, he turned to me and said, "Are you satisfied?" And I was like, overwhelmingly satisfied. And in my mind, I was saying something that I thought I should not say out loud. In my mind, I was saying, I want to offer myself in service to your holy lotus feet. That's what I really thought. But I thought, if I say that, this is expressing too much too soon. But then around a year went by, and I found myself again at his lotus feet at a critical time, and made this offer, and particularly with emphasis on hearing from Guru Maharaj and publishing that. And he said in a little light way, he said, like, as your lifelong engagement. And yes, that's the proposal. And then he told me, as he said, I wanted to collect the maximum from my Guru Maharaj, meaning Srila Saraswati Thakur. And then he said, and I did. He said, but my tendency for distribution was not so great. He said, but in your case, what you should do is collect from me and then go and distribute that, and come out, collect from me and then distribute that. So, why did it be about offering yourself in service? When you and not only myself, but many others who came, they didn't merely want Guru Maharaj to give them a sannyas name, a proper sannyas name according to Saraswati Thakur's system or some such thing. They offered themselves in service to the lotus feet of Srila Guru Maharaj. That's what we're out for. That's what we're seeking. That personality whom we should serve, utterly offer ourselves to. That's how we thrive in spiritual life. When it comes to adhikar, it is the healthiest to think of ourselves that we're not even on the radar. We're aspiring for the lowest position. If at the end of this life we're given entrance into the least position, we'll consider ourselves very fortunate. Another question?
Yes, from our Chinese yatra.
Aha.
We know that an ignorant person cannot observe his ignorance. But if a practitioner says that he is in ignorance, then how can it be?
A petitioner?
Practitioner.
Oh, practitioner. No, we would say that a foolish person, and here we're making a little bit of a distinction, a foolish person cannot recognize their ignorance. And this is not even in the spiritual world, in the material world. Educated people realize that, like, the highest example, Newton. Everyone's praising that he knows everything, taking it to the other extreme. And he's saying, no, I'm, like a child on the shore of the ocean of truth, collecting something. So it's an expression of humility. So here, a devotee they're assessing themselves and they're aware of their limitations. That's what they mean. It's that type of ignorance. We're dealing with the infinite. There's always something yet to be known. So, they are wise to acknowledge their ignorance or their deficiencies, what they're lacking. The one who can express that shows they have something. Those who are totally unaware and overwhelmed by their own sense of importance or knowledge or understanding, they're truly ignorant. So sometimes Guru Maharaj will say that as ignorance is undesirable, out and out ignorance, so gyan, knowledge, it's another type of undesirable thing. Because it leads someone to think that they know everything. So Brahma is jnane prayasamudapasana manta eva. Stop trying to measure the infinite by your finite capacity. Janantu eva janantu kim bahukya name prabhu. Saying others may say they know something about Krishna. He said, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have much to say on this subject. Of course, that comes in the Brahma Stuti. These prayers that are extraordinary and contain full Gaudiya Siddhanta. Around 30 prayers in, he's saying, I don't have much to say, but he just said quite a bit, actually. But it means in a particular context that, like Kolavecha Sridhar saying, I don't know, I'm incapable, and then making the most beautiful prayers. Murari Gupta, similar thing, then making the most beautiful prayers. Anantadev praising Krishna. So, when I had to spend, my 15 minutes with Srila Prabhupada. He's asking me the service I was doing in the New York Temple at the time. One asked, besides working at ISKCON Press, one was preaching to the Indian community with another devotee. And I told Prabhupada that, I said, because he was interested in that. And I said, but sometimes, we're preaching to them. I'm saying it's a little difficult. Because there's the people like to hear everything. There's the sweet type group. Anything you say, they're appreciating that. And then there's this other one I mentioned, where they say, don't want you to say, and they say, oh, I know what is Krishna. And Prabhupada just kind of, and he said, that is their disease. I think, I know Krishna. That is their disease, to think that they know Krishna. Guru Maharaj would say, yet I have to know. Finite is approaching the infinite. Krishna himself, who's the supreme omniscient, says, I can't estimate how much love Srimati Radharani has for me. It's beyond what I can conceive. Who can conceive everything? Saying, this has captured my curiosity. So, in answer to that, yes, the actually ignorant, they're unaware of that. The wise, we can say, are aware of their ignorance and acknowledge that. Snayam atma pravachanena labhyo namedaya na bahuna srutena. You won't get this by mental or intellectual prowess, scholarship, deep intelligence, but he revealed Tashaisha atma vivrinute tena labhyas. No. Tashaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam. He reveals himself to whom he chooses, through whom he chooses. Therein lies our prospect. Say, oh, then it's dependent upon him. Exactly. That's the proper position to be in. Grace, dependent. And the modern world with secular sloganeering that sounds like weakness. There's this cult of self-promotion with nothing substantial to it. Like Newton, the more one knows, the more they recognize remains to be known. That indicates some knowing or some wisdom, some humility. Anything else?
Yes. How to live inner life?
Inner life?
Yes, and stay concentrated.
We always refer to practice, right? Devotional practice. Guru Deva would say, and you're practicing life. Sometimes they used to think that was humorous because there's you don't, he means, and the life of practices, but he'd say, you're practicing life. So, we're trying. So every day we're hearing something. And what we hear, if we're attentive and faithful, sometimes something comes to us and it holds our attention for some time. and then it cannot remain. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says in one of his songs, what is it? Vikchakshana Korite. I forget, but he says that like lightning, like we know in darkness, when there's lightning, momentarily everything becomes illumined and you can see far and wide, and then it goes back to the way it was. He's saying, he's giving a comparison that being enlightened in Krishna conception is comparable to that. And he's saying, and if you try and force it to stay, then Krishna withdraws. He's free. Right? So, we're trying, but we shouldn't try to force. So, we try to be regulated in our practices, to hear something every day for a certain amount of time, to take the name for a certain amount of time in an attentive way, and to build from there. And also by keeping good association keeps us more focused. We cannot artificially sustain. Guru Maharaj liked to quote Swami Maharaj's response to the devotee who overheard their conversation. It was in Bengali. And then he said, "What were you talking about?" The devotee asked Prabhupada about his conversation, what he and Srila Sridhar Maharaj were talking about. And Swami Maharaj said, "He has very high realizations of Krishna. To hear them, you would faint." And Guru Maharaj said, he would quote this many times, but saying, when he reaches this point, saying, as Swami Maharaj says, you will faint there. You won't be able to maintain your consciousness. So, as example, if we read something from Chaitanya Charitamritam, and by the grace of Guru and Vaishnava, some little appreciation comes out, we think, oh, we want to extend that. Or maybe I'll read that again and have the same feeling. Maybe not. Then it would be something you could do at will. It would be a step and repeat process. Oh, now I will read this pastime and be enlivened for an extended period of time. That's not right. It comes in a particular way according to the necessity of service. And, Shraddhanvato Anushranaya Datavarna Yedyak. If all this is there, then hearing with faithfulness, something may come, Krishna may reveal something. And we should be happy with that. And if that leaves us hankering for more, that's a good thing. But not to force. We cannot sustain that position. Yes.
Sundar Gopal from Italy.
Oh, joy. Sundar Gopal.
Resurrection. He's saying, respectful dandavats. If someone is having serious health problems, so that he cannot do seva or live in the temple, what should he do? Concentrate more on service or take care more of his health?
Well, the Bhagavatam says, Kama Shanendriya Priti Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasceha Karmavi. In summary, it's saying you need to be healthy to serve, right? Or the necessity for health should be service related. So we try to do both. Always. There's always something you can do. Etavad janma sapalyam, that's sloka. By your body, mind, words, intelligence, your wealth, there's something you can do. Right? Janardhan Maharaj mentions when Srila Prabhupada in his final days, talking about, being unhealthy. It's in the final days of his life. He's like lying down on a stage in Bombay, like, giving a lecture, answering questions. Jayadvaita Maharaj is holding the microphone for the transcriber in Vrindavan. Prabhupada can barely, keeping alive at that point, and he's translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't expect that you'll translate the Bhagavatam or give, a lecture to 20,000 people. But there's always something that can be done. Otherwise, why live? Prana ache jar se hetu prachar. Pran, life, preaching gives life. Those who've got life preach, and those who preach get life. If you do a little preaching, you'll be surprised how much life you will get. See Siddhanti Maharaj in a very distressed condition in his final days, and Sukhal always preaching to everybody. He was preaching more, you could say, in the end than his unfit condition than before, because he realized, I'm running out of time. So then he's like preaching all the nonstop, constantly. So, and the world situation is such, and our individual situation may be such that, life is uncertain. That much we know, for sure, right? That life is uncertain. So, we want to use the time we have. Something has come to us by the grace of our Guru Varga, and we want to share that with others, whether it's one person, 10 people, 100, 1,000. Then we think, all right, then I'm doing something. Not that it came to me and then it didn't go any further. Our Guru Varga, they made so many sacrifices to deliver this to me, and after it got to me, it didn't go to one other person. That's not good. Right? Then there's a tacit understanding that what was gifted to us freely should be extended to others. Saying whether it's 1, 10, 100, or Saraswati Thakur said, the walls, can also preach to the walls, can talk out loud Krishna consciousness to the walls, because their jiva's in inanimate state. They'll get some benefit. Holy name bouncing off the walls, talk about Krishna bouncing on. There's always something that can be done. But best thing is to keep the association of devotees, because it's easy to become overwhelmed when we're by ourselves. Maya is very powerful and we're very weak. Bahudbir militat tareva sankirtanam. So Jiva Goswami says, what is sankirtan proper? When many come together to promote Krishna consciousness. So it's best to stay in the association of devotees closely, and then we get many different types of service opportunities. But if for some reason that cannot be there, then we can increase our hearing, chanting, reading. Sometimes we're in a situation like that. Once when some devotees were they went to a country to preach Krishna consciousness, and then there was some political turmoil, upheaval there. And after a while they came back, and when they met with Prabhupada, they were saying, well, because at that point we couldn't preach or distribute Krishna consciousness to others, so we just decided to return. And he said, actually, he said, like a businessman, he said, when there's opportunities for selling, he's selling. He said, but when there's no opportunities to sell, then he's buying, accumulating more goods, that knowing the selling time will come again. He said, so not only that, but you can also take some time to develop. There are times when we need to put more emphasis upon reading and hearing and making sure that what we represent to others is accurate. That should be there as well. That, like in a time of plague, the eagerness to inoculate others, to distribute vaccine is a good thing. It's wonderful. But what will be all important is the vaccine. Right? That we're giving the vaccine that is appropriate. So there's always something. There's no position from which we cannot serve. When I first joined, we would hear about Chidananda Prabhu. And within a few days of joining, we were on Harinam, we were arrested. So we're in jail, like 25 brahmacharis in jail. And there was like an artist and took like match head, and our temple deity was Jagannath. So made like a Jagannath on the wall, and then we're having like arati, we're just going on with the program. Took our laces from our shoes, like knotted them, where everyone's chanting 16 rounds. And but then they were saying, but Chidananda, as he was sick even then, and he'd been in some place where sort of like stripped of all the paraphernalia and things of Krishna consciousness, somehow he still went on. And you ever saw, he had these little deities too. He would show them to devotees sometimes. But he got so much praise from Prabhupada for, in the most trying circumstances, he figured out some way to continue his program of Krishna culture. But Guru Maharaj will say, in the absence of so many service opportunities or association, then hearing, chanting, reading, those things can be increased. But ideally, we want to live in close association with the devotees where there are innumerable service opportunities. Sevan mukhe hijjavaro shayameva spurtira. Hare Krishna.